Advaita versus Dvaita Vedanta. Are you one, or are you two? This video is dedicated to my two children Anudvaig Dixit and Svasa Anudvaig Dixit. Through this video you will be closer to resolving the question that are you one or two, or in other words, are you and everything around just God as proposed in Advaita Vedanta, or you and God have individual existence as proposed in Dvaita Vedanta? I suggest that you watch it in a relaxed frame of mind, preferably with a pen and a paper in hand. Contrary to popular belief, spirituality, similar to science, is grounded on empirical evidence. The difference being that in the case of spirituality the experiment and the experimenter are the same, or it is you. As such, if you want to benefit from this or any other video on spirituality, you should do experiments on yourself to accept or reject whatever you understand from the source of spirituality. Core philosophical positions. 1. Dvaita, dualism, asserts a permanent distinction between the individual self, jiva, and the divine, Brahman. 2. Advaita, non-dualism, claims that the distinction between individual self, jiva, and the divine, Brahman, is illusory, maya, positing that the ultimate truth is unity between the self and the divine. Arguments supporting Dvaita. First argument supporting Dvaita. Universal human experience. Human beings naturally experience an internal duality. For instance, one part of the mind says, eat the chocolate, while another part says, don't. One says, work, while another says, rest. These common experiences illustrate inherent duality within consciousness itself, affirming the central tenet of Dvaita. Second argument supporting Dvaita. Scriptural evidence. The Upanishads consistently depict duality, often represented through pairs such as teacher and student or jiva and Brahman. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna remain distinct until the very end, emphasizing the permanence of individuality and relational duality. Bhagavad Gita 2:12, Krishna states, Nati avaham jatu nasam, natavam neem janadipa. We have always existed and always will. This reinforces the eternal distinctness of individual selves. Critique of Advaita. First critique of Advaita. Reliance on anarvachaniya. Advaita relies on the concept of Maya as indescribable, anarvachaniya, which bypasses logical scrutiny. This reliance places it closer to dogma or superstition rather than a philosophy grounded in reason and evidence. Why would an intelligent, omniscient God create an illusion to confuse itself and then rediscover itself? Third critique of Advaita. Future-dependent argument. Advaita promises future realization of unity with the divine, a claim that cannot be verified in the present. This is akin to unsubstantiated promises often used to manipulate trust, relying more on belief than on demonstrable truth. Fourth critique of Advaita. The incorrect implication of story of King Janaka. The story of King Janaka's dream is often used in Advaita's defense. After experiencing vastly different realities in his waking and dreaming states, Janaka asks, which of these is true? The sage Ashtavakra declares that both states are unreal, mere products of Maya. According to Advaita, since the experiences of one state are invalidated upon entering the other, neither is ultimately real. The only truth, they claim, is the Turiya, which transcends these states. Leap of faith. While the story effectively demonstrates the impermanence and illusory nature of experiential reality, it fails to bridge the gap to Advaita's central claim, that the experiencer, the individual self, is non-different from Brahman. The realization that waking and dreaming are illusory does not inherently prove the oneness of the experiencer with the ultimate reality. This leap from the nature of Maya to metaphysical oneness lacks logical rigor. As such, the story may illustrate Maya, but it doesn't substantiate the core Advaitic claim of non-duality. Fifth critique of Advaita. Vishwanara misinterpretation. The term Vishwanara in verse 3 of the Mandukya Upanishad has historically been interpreted in Advaita Vedanta as cosmic being, or God, based on the Sandhi or compound word, Vishwa, or world, and Nara or man or Puresh. This interpretation aligns with grand philosophical narratives in Indian spiritualism, where Puresh is associated with the divine, as seen in the Purusha Sukta and other texts. Scholars equated Vishwanara with the universal consciousness or Brahman, building a foundation for Advaita's non-dualistic philosophy. However, this interpretation creates significant logical inconsistencies. The verse describes the first part of consciousness as the waking state, outwardly cognizant, with 7 parts and 19 mouths and consuming gross objects. If we take the 6th characteristic of the first part of consciousness, Vishwanara, to mean God, this description becomes nonsensical. How can an omniscient, omnipresent being be limited to 19 mouths or merely outward cognition? Such limitations contradict the very nature of God, undermining the coherence of the verse. A deeper linguistic analysis reveals an alternative root for the word nara, or nar, meaning to lead, or to be around, or to interact. Note, the root nr is the same root as that for the English word near. This gives Vishwanara the meaning interactor with the world. This is a practical and logical interpretation that aligns perfectly with the context of the waking state, emphasizing the individual consciousness that engages with the physical universe. This interpretation is both etymologically sound and preserves the logical flow of the verse and resolves the contradictions inherent in the traditional view. Advaitic scholars, enamored with the grandeur of Turiya, the ultimate state of consciousness described in verse 7, may have overlooked the meticulous reasoning in the earlier verses. Their focus on the transcendent likely led to an erroneous equation of Vishwanara with Brahman or the Virat Puresh, without fully analyzing how the rest of verse 3 supports, or contradicts, this interpretation. The traditional Advaitic translation, while philosophically compelling, stretches the meaning to fit its grand narrative, potentially misrepresenting the original intent. By revisiting these earlier verses with fresh eyes, we uncover a more nuanced and coherent understanding of consciousness, bridging the empirical and the esoteric. Possible purpose of Advaita. Pedagogical. Advaita may function as a strategic tool to guide individuals towards self-improvement by appealing to their ego. By asserting, "You are God," inspires motivation and self-belief. However, this journey may ultimately lead to the realization that dualism, Dvaita, is the enduring truth. Concluding observations. Dvaita's strengths. Dvaita aligns with logic, empirical observation, and scriptural consistency. It provides a coherent worldview without relying on unverifiable claims or circumventing reason. Advaita's limitations. By framing Maya as indescribable, Advaita risks being categorized as dogma or superstition. Until it can offer logical coherence or empirical verifiability, it remains speculative. Advaita might serve as a motivational or pedagogical tool. Irreconcilable philosophies. Advaita and Dvaita represent fundamentally opposing views of reality. The two systems are logically incompatible. Only one can ultimately be true. Though this is by no means a rigorous development, however, based on the logical arguments of this presentation, we can safely conclude that Dvaita seems more appealing than Advaita, or 2 as 1 and 1 as 0.